Hey guys, it's Boki here from Gigi's Fabric Shop, home to Juki and Janome Junkies, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about sergers. Everything you need to know about sergers and how you can decide which serger you need to add to your sewing arsenal. Let's go over what we're going to learn in this video and kind of the structure so you can follow along. I actually put together a really fun presentation for our staff here on sergers to kind of help, better educate everybody about all the different models that Juki offers. What even is a serger? What is it used for? What does it do? Who is using it? So there's a lot of information around sergers, especially if you're just starting out. So this presentation I'm actually going to bring to you guys because I feel like it's very helpful in understanding all the things I just mentioned. So we're going to go over the very basics. We're going to go over the different Juki models because there are kind of like different categories to things. And we're going to talk about what makes them different and the three factors that I like to consider. And I always tell my customers on which serger should I buy. These are going to be those three things that are really important. So let's talk about the 3 points. The 3 things that you're going to want to take into account when deciding which is your next sewing machine, especially in the serger category, is going to be these 3 things. The first thing is, what are you going to be using the serger for? What are your needs? The second one is going to be, what features are you looking for? And that's going to make a lot of sense as we go through this video. And then the third one is very important. It's going to be budget. Sergers more or less are all very, very similar. So budget is definitely a big deciding factor when you're picking between those categories. So those are the 3 things we're going to further dissect within each category. So let's get started. First thing we're going to talk about is, what is a serger? What does it do? A serger is an overlock machine, so that it's actually trimming the edge of your fabric while encasing it with thread to prevent fraying. It uses multiple threads to create strong and stretchy and clean to finish seams, making it perfect for garment construction, especially with knits and woven fabrics. Unlike a cover stitch machine, a serger cannot do hemming with a top stitched finish. So a serger, you're probably wearing something right now that was used with a serger. A great place to look is actually on the inside of your shirts. You'll notice it's that edge of the fabric with all those stitches to prevent it from fraying. So it's very commonly used and you're probably wearing it right now. So in a nutshell, a serger is your finishing tool. It is finishing the edge of your fabric. So anytime you hear the term overlock, this is always going to be associated with a serger. Unlike a cover stitch machine, I'll throw this up really quick so you guys see it. We'll maybe do a video just dedicated to cover stitch machines. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with information today, but a cover stitch machine is more of a hemming tool. It's used to hem your clothes to fit perfectly and do that final top stitching. So the term cover hem is always going to be associated with a cover stitch machine. And you see that mostly in t-shirts, especially on the edge of the cuff where there's those 2 beautiful top stitch finishes. And on the other side, it's that kind of serger look where there's multiple threads, but the top is more of a clean finish. What is a serger used for? A serger can be used for a wide variety of different things. I think the most commonly used one is going to be for clothes, apparel, garments, swimsuits, athletic wear. That's definitely the most needed purpose for a serger. You could definitely use it in other things. I have quilters that will use it. I have bag makers who will use it. It can be used in a variety of different applications. Once you understand what it's for, that'll make more sense. And we'll talk about what type of setup would be more ideal for the garment sewer versus the quilter versus the bag maker. But it can be used pretty versatilely, however you'd really like to. But the main one I would say is definitely for making clothes and garments. So starting with sergers. These sergers kind of come in categories. Juki has several sergers, so starting your research can be certainly overwhelming to say the least. So hopefully by the end this will make a lot of sense. I kind of look at the machines in a pyramid. Sergers come in groups and it really is almost all about convenience. Having one machine be more convenient than the other. They all more or less do the exact same thing. Some just have more bells and whistles to make your serging experience so much easier. I would like to say that there is a lot of information in today's video, so feel free to pause me to read what's on the screen. Feel free to take notes as you watch this video today, and feel free to rewind me if I'm talking too fast. I'm trying my very best to talk nice and slow for you guys. So looking at that pyramid, on the top of the pyramid, the prime of the prime is going to be your air threading sergers. We're going to talk about each one of these groups in specific, all right? Middle of this group is going to be those MO100 series machines. machines, and then the bottom is going to be the MO600 series machines. So let's go through those groups, give or take. I'm not going to go super in depth on these. We do have a comparison video already on the 600 series and the 100 series, and I know David is making you an air threading comparison, so we're going to have all of those so you can watch those specifically for the categories, but we're going to dive in a little bit just to kind of help gear you in the right direction of which machine to get. So first up, we're going to talk about that MO600 series, and within this series there are 4 machines. There's the MO623, the MO644, the MO654, and the MO655. So that's why I call them the 600 series, because they all start with a 6 and they all kind of fit in this realm. They're all very, very similar. This is your very basic beginner, most affordable range. Okay, so out of all the Juki Sergers that Juki offers, this is going to be the most affordable, kind of simple, very traditional style serger. These models are also called the legacy models because they've been around for a really, really long time, and hundreds, if not thousands, of these machines are loved and used. We see so many people in our Juki Junkies Facebook group have this machine and love it, and it's just really reliable. We have very little issues with these machines. They're very basic when you look at sergers, or if you know anything about them, they're very, very traditional, okay? They do the job, they do it well, they're made to last, but are they the most convenient? No. Remember, they're at the bottom of the triangle, so they're not like the most easy to use, so take that with what you will, but we'll dissect that a little bit further. Within this series, you have the most to the least. So within each portion of that triangle, I make another triangle to help you understand how to like tier them, all right? So at the top of the pyramid, we have the MO655. In the middle of the pyramid, we have the 654 and the 644. And at the bottom of the pyramid, we have the 623. These things are determined by price and features and accessories and capabilities. Those things tend to drive the price of the machine as well. So that's kind of how we came up with that little organization there. But visually, all these machines are exactly the same. They have the same body and the same skeleton, even take up the same footprint in your sewing space, and are only around 15 pounds. Things that matter most to you are going to be thread capability, and that's going to be definitely one of the really big deciding factors, especially within this series, on choosing which one is best for you. So the thread capability starts to change, as you can see in this chart here. Accessories tend to change, and the capability, like if the machine can do a chain stitch or if it can do a flat lock stitch, those things change because they're tied in directly with thread capability. Most sergers, you'll notice on the top of a serger, there's 4 compartments. There's 4 discs. Most people use a 4-thread serger, but there are options and stitches that can do 4-thread, 3-thread, and even 5-thread if the machine allows you. So the most affordable serger here is the MO623, and that machine can only do 2 and 3-thread serging, where the rest of them can do 2, 3, and 4. And then exclusively at the top of the pyramid, we have the 655, which is your 5-thread option. Fun fact, if you're looking for a 5-thread option, the 655 is one of the only machines that do that, as well as the MO735. Those are the only 2 Juki Sergers that allow you to do a 5-thread option. So I made this little Venn diagram to kind of give you a visual. I'm a very visual person, and when I was taking all of my notes and trying to understand what machines do, what stitches, I needed this to understand. So as you can see here, I kind of kept the MO654 and the 44 as one machine because they're very, very similar. Watch that comparison video to understand. The 623 is uniquely on its own, and the 655 is uniquely on its own. Notice that the 3 circles, there's one little center where they all share the same 2 and 3 thread stitches. So these machines, all of them, all 4, share that in common. And then within the circles, they all kind of share different things. So the 654 and the 44, 2, 3, 4 thread capability. 655 does all of that with the exclusivity of the 5 thread. And the MO623 only does a 2 and 3 thread. So once you kind of see those side by side, you see what they share. The 655 and the 54 and 44 share the same 2, 3, and 4 thread stitches, but remember, the 55 does a 5 thread, which, if you're wondering what that is, it is a chain stitch. You'll notice it in the corner. It says this is used for construction, basting, decorative finishes, used for sportswear or flatter seams and reinforcing seams in conjunction with an overlock or cover stitch machine. So there's a little picture there so you can kind of see what that looks like, but that's usually a very specific thing someone is needing, and if you're needing it, you know where to go. So when you're comparing all of those models, one of the things that I mentioned between the different ones was deciding what thread capability you wanted, right? So how do you know what thread capability you want, especially if you're a super beginner, right? So let's talk about the different types of stitches. And this is a very informative slide. I'm not gonna read all of it. Definitely pause me and take your time to read it. And there's a great visual here that shows you the difference. But why 2 3, why 2 threads, why 3 threads, or why 4? All right, a 2-thread overlock stitch is going to be less bulky, and it's useful in specific sewing applications where you need that lighter, less bulkier type of finish. So there's only 2 threads here, all right? So it doesn't give so much extra to those seams, all right? Why someone might be needing this over a standard 2 or 4 thread. You see this list here. These are a couple helpful examples I found. Working with lighter weight fabric, trying to do a more decorative finish, less thread consumption, more stretchy and drapey fabrics will use this, flat seams for lingerie and activewear. So these are a couple examples. This is going to be a super thin, only 2 thread type of deal. You see it in the picture, and then versus the 3 and the 4, more threads are added, right? So it's giving more bulk to the pattern. A 3-thread overlock stitch is a versatile option that balances durability and flexibility, right? So it's kind of like that happy middle, not 2, not 4, but 3. And I have a lot of customers that like to use 3-thread. So here's the list of why someone would choose that over a 2 or a 4. It's going to be stronger than 2-thread, right? But it's also less bulky than 4. Great for lightweight to medium weight fabrics. It's ideal for decorative and narrow seams. Slight stretch to knitwear, and it's very cost effective for garment construction as well. Also in terms of bag construction, I know I mentioned that as well. 2 and 3 thread are probably going to be those ideal types of stitches that somebody wants when you're doing bags, because when you're assembling a bag, there's already so much bulk going on there. And if you want to give some longevity to the bag, Serger is going to add that for you, but you're going to want to use like a 2 or a 3 thread to maintain those stitches. And then finally, why would a 4-thread be a choice over a 2 or a 3? So here's a couple reasons. It's going to be great for stretchy garments like activewear or leggings. It's going to be strong enough to be a main seam, so it's actually going to save you time, but also keep in mind it is bulkier. It's the bulkiest out of all of them, so you have to decide where you want that and if you don't want that, depending on what you're doing. And 3, it's going to be the most durable out of all the options, right? More threads equals more resilience in washes over time, so definitely something to consider when you're making apparel and construction of clothes. So 3-thread is more of a edge finishing, whereas 4-thread is your seam and finishing, and it's strong enough to be all of those things instead of just a finish edge. So it's an all-in-one, saving you time, stronger and faster. You don't have to do an extra step. You'll notice in the comparison charts of the MO600 series, some of them do a flat lock stitch, and here's a great little slide that kind of shows that for you and what that looks like. A flat lock stitch is unique overlock technique, and it creates a very flat and stretchy decorative seam, and here's why some might choose it. It's not bulky, it's very flat, it's very stretchy and flexible. It's decorative and reversible, so it does look the same on the front and back, and it eliminates the need for additional seams, and great for reducing any sort of irritation like on yoga pants. You'll definitely see that when you're wearing like leggings. On the inside, it's kind of like that flat, very dense type of seam. That is a flat lock stitch. So that was a couple examples of when you would use something like that. So thread capability is definitely going to be a big deciding factor if you're trying to go within this series. The MO600 series is very, very affordable. It is very traditional in the threading. It's going to be the most complex in that sense, and you know, something to consider. So now that you understand that, you can kind of decide within this group. Thread capability goes hand in hand with those flat lock and chain stitch options. And by the way, all of these machines can do a rolled hem. They all produce a beautiful rolled hem stitch. Accessories also do change from model to model, but I always like to let my customers know, don't let the accessories be the option why you choose a machine over another one. You want to look at the things you can't buy, right? What the machine does, what are the capabilities, and what can it do for you? And if they're the same, then obviously going for a machine for more accessories, if you're going to use them, is going to make sense, right? So within this range, the MO655 comes with the most options here. It comes with the upper looper converter, a chain stitch seam guide plate, and the standard presser foot, whereas the others don't come with as much. So take some time to look that over in the chart here. But the upper looper converter, if anyone's wondering, is used to disable the upper looper, allowing the machine to create a 2-thread stitch instead of the standard 3 or 4. So could be used, could be purchased. On a machine that doesn't come with one, like the 644, you could buy it, whereas it does come on the 654. So keep that in mind. One thing that is very important, and it comes down to those features that you're looking for, is something like differential feed. So you'll notice on the 623, it does not come with that capability. It doesn't have a differential feed. Differential feed on a serger controls the movement of the fabric by adjusting the speed of the front and the rear feed dogs. This helps prevent stretching and puckering or any type of distortion, especially when working with the knits and lightweight fabrics where they're just really finicky and hard to keep on track. The 623 doesn't have that feature, so keep that in mind when deciding. Although the 623 is the most affordable, might not be practical to have that extra control and setting on your machine. So I'm sure by now you understand the difference between the 655 and the 23 because it is the most drastic difference. And like I said, watch that comparison for that really in-depth deep dive. But talking really quickly about the middle two that I grouped together, the 654 and the 44. These two machines are very, very similar, and the price difference between them is not very much. So if you're kind of looking for a 4-thread serger, and you're deciding between these two models, when you look at them side by side, they're exactly the same. But you will notice on the side of the machine, there's these two little dials that are missing on the 654. It's not that it doesn't have it, it's just in a different spot. And this is a prime example about what I was talking about as far as convenience goes in sergers. These machines share all the same capability, all right? They do the same thread, the same stitches, accessories are a little different, it's just one extra thing on the 54, but as far as capability goes, exactly the same. The biggest difference on these two guys is the convenience of the location of the differential feed and the stitch length dial. That's what those two dials are on the 654 versus the 44. On the 44, you'll notice that it's actually located on the inside. It's behind the door, so that little side left cover opens and then it's located in there. So not as convenient to get to, right? The 654 is super convenient. It's on the right side. You don't have to open anything. You don't have to pull your project out. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the convenience. Capability-wise, they're twins, identical twins. So just keep that in mind when you're deciding between the two. The 654 is typically the most popular one that we sell out of this group because of that convenience factor. It can be annoying to have to pull your project out and go through the side. So that's really the only difference between those two guys. So in a nutshell, that is the MO600 series. This was kind of a more fast-paced difference between the two, but this is a great beginner section, a great beginner budget-friendly category to consider. It's for the person who's looking for something reliable that doesn't break the bank. It's for the person that's just needing an overlock stitch once in a while, or is just getting started into this hobby and is trying to figure out even if they like making clothes or even if they like to sew. This is a great place to start because the serger won't let you down. Your $300 or $400 are going to serve you very well in this group, all right? It's great for garments and quilting. It also has a heavy-duty knife system, so it's gonna help get through some of those denser projects that you may run into, like denim or wool. Very traditional style, all right? The threading is the most complex, and I will show you that later in this video so you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about, especially if you've never had a serger. But let's kind of compare this now to the MO100 series and the convenience that they bring. So this group is a little smaller. We got the MO104, 114, and the 1200 QVP. Within this series, it's the same logic. We have the most to the least, and that is also determined by price, features, accessories, and capability. At the very top of the pyramid, we have the 1200 QVP. In the middle, we have the MO114, and at the bottom, we have the 104. All right, and I kind of put little money signs to just let you know that the price also kind of changes, and you'll see why the MO1200 and the 114 have the same money signs. Visually, all these machines also share the exact same body and the skeleton. They all share the same footprint in your sewing space, and they also only weigh around 15 pounds. Thread capability is shared on all three of these machines. Unlike the 600 series, all of these guys do 2, 3, and 4 thread. They all do rolled hems, they all do flat locks, and those 2, 3, 4 thread overlock stitches. This category doesn't offer any chain stitching. Remember, that's exclusive to the 655 and the MO 735. So if that's something you're looking for, let me know. Also, as you'll notice up at the top, we are JukiJunkies.com, and we sell all Juki machines and accessories, and we take a lot of pride in being able to provide this knowledge for you guys. We call ourselves the experts. So if you ever have any questions or you need help deciding which serger is a little bit better for you, you want that one-on-one interaction, feel free to give us a call. Our phone number is right up at the top, 813-661-9000. Give us a call and we would love to help you out. The one really big thing that changes on this series is going to be accessories. As far as everything else goes, I always like to compare these machines, like David loves to compare stuff in like fishing terms and car terms because that's what makes sense to him because he's a boy. In my world, I kind of like to compare it to something that makes sense, right? Like when you have like an identical twin, right? You're the same, but you're different. You might have little different birthmarks or little different things here and there. That's kind of how I like to look at these machines. These machines are like triplets, and they all have like little tiny things that make them different. They all share the same capability, but the MO1200 comes with so much more bang for your buck. It's gonna come with a lot more accessories. So remember how I said don't let accessories be the reason why you decide a machine? Well, in this case, since the capability is the same across the board, it would make sense to have that be a deciding factor, especially with how helpful these presser feet are. You get the blind stitch foot, elasticator presser foot, cording foot, and that upper looper converter that I mentioned before, all with the 1200. And are these accessories worth it? In my opinion, I think it's totally worth it, especially because when you look at the price point between the 114 and the 1200, it definitely makes sense to go for it. All right, so these feet on sergers are very specialized, and specialized applications on sergers definitely require the right type of feet. It's not like a home sewing machine where you can, get away with doing other applications with just your universal presser foot. On this machine, it's a lot more specific. So these 3 feet are very commonly purchased. The blind stitch, the elasticator helps you put elastic into your apparel and garments. And then the cording presser foot is a nice little decorative finish too. I think these are definitely worth it for the price point. So the 1200 and the 114, right? What's the difference? Because the price point is super, super close, if not the same. And I even wrote it here, they are identical twins with different birthmarks. They even cost the same. So why not the 1200? Why not get the free accessories? It's really just down to a personal preference. They both do the exact same thing. Side by side, you'll see the 1200 has like a little purple detail to it. It's part of the QVP series. And then the 114 is just all white. To make a really long story short, before COVID, the QVP series was only sold in quilt stores. It was a way to entice the consumer, you guys, to come to the quilt stores and support us versus just buying online. So the 114 was the online model, and then the 1200 was the in-store model, right? You couldn't get this one online. So now, after COVID, everything's available online. So it gets a little confusing to understand because before you couldn't see those models online. All machines offer differential feed, and it's just the location that starts to differ. So rewind back to the 600 series when I was talking about the 654 and the 44, that 2 little dials for the differential feed and the stitch width is different. On the 104, it's located inside the machine versus the other 2 guys, it's conveniently located on the outside. So recapping now, when you put the 100 series next to the 600 series, what changes, right? What's different? When you put these 2 machines side by side, you'll notice that the threading mechanism on the front is different. On the 100 series, it's these little sliders, which is really, really convenient and much like a home sewing machine. Whereas on the MO600 series, you have these dials, and there's much more extra steps on the 600. Later in this video, I will show you threading on all 3 machines just so you see how much faster things get, but this is a convenience factor. The 100 series is simpler to thread. On the top, the bottom is still the same, but the top is definitely simplified versus the 600 series. And again, like I mentioned, the 600s are much more traditional, and they have more steps and dials and tension discs that you gotta make sure that you're in to have pretty stitches. So in a nutshell, this is also a really great beginner machine, and if your budget permits to give you a little bit more wiggle room to splurge on something a little more convenient, this is a really great category for you as well. It's offering a little bit of an easier learning curve compared to the MO600 series. It costs a little bit more, and it's a little bit simpler than the 600 group, so you might want to consider that if budget permits. Of course, same versatility, great for garments, quilting, has that heavy-duty knife system we talked about. And it's just a little bit easier. It's a great serger, middle range, not super expensive still. But then, of course, we have the air threading sergers, the best of the best, the most convenient, hence why they are at the top of the pyramid. We've saved the best for the last, the air threading sergers. These are the 4 models that live in this category as of now. We have the 1000, the 2000, the 2800, and the 3000. Okay, slide 41. Same logic as always. They have an order from most to least, and those things change by price, features, accessories, and capabilities. These machines are all pretty different, actually. Unlike the other 2 groups we've talked about, they share a lot of things in common. I would say these are all pretty uniquely on their own. So this is a big lesson. This is probably the most complex one when it comes to deciding. But at the top of the pyramid, we have the MO3000 QVP. This one is the Lamborghini of air threading machines. And then we have the MO2800, which is right in the middle. And then at the bottom of the air threading series, we have the 1000 and the 2000. Let's start off with the OGs. The OG, the originals, the MO1000 and the MO2000 are what really started the air threading series for Juki. So these have been around the longest, and they have been loved by so many. This is the exact machine that actually got Gigi to start carrying the Juki brand, is because she fell in love with how incredibly convenient these air threading sergers were and how they worked. They actually did what they had to do, and the technology was great. So these 2 are very similar. I grouped them together because one is just an upgrade of the other. Remember that little QVP lesson here? It's the same logic applies here. All right, so these machines have very much, like, they have a lot in common, almost everything in common. The face of the machine is what starts to change here. They actually weigh the same, they have the same thread capability, the same adjustment capability. They even come with the same accessories. So what makes the 2 different? It's convenience that makes the 2 different. The MO2000 has this really tiny little LCD screen on the front of it, which allows you to navigate through the stitches, and it displays all of the changes on the screen, so you can change over from stitches to stitches much more quicker. Whereas on the 1000, you would be required to refer to your manual every time you wanted to change over. So this upgrade might be worth it to the person that's still learning how sergers work and wants the easiest experience, of course. This is going to be the most affordable range in the world of air threading sergers too. So the 1000 and the 2000 are definitely very spoiling, right? So this could be perfect for the person who wants to upgrade to an air threading serger. They want to get rid of their really complicated serger to thread. Or if you really know you need a serger and you want the best and most convenient for your hobby that you're doing, or if you're making things rapidly and you want to get them done quickly, this could be something to consider. I want to go back just 1 second and talk about what air threading even means. So within this series, it has this new technology where it uses the power of air to pump your threads into your upper and lower loopers, which is the most complicated area to thread on a sewing machine. On the other categories, you would have to manually do that, so it's a lot more intense and harder on the eyes. The simplified threading is definitely the most important thing on a serger, right? Especially when you have 2, 3, 4, even 5 threads coming into play on a sewing machine. So having that air threading technology just ensures that you're getting your threads exactly where they need to be without, being frustrated that everything's in the right spot. So now that we've talked about the 1000 and the 2000, let's highlight the 2800 just a little bit because it does uniquely shine on its own. All right, so this compared to the 1000 and the 2000, this is also a 2, 3, and 4 thread serger, and it does the same stitches as the 1000 and the 2000. But there are a lot of things shared amongst these 3, but there are 3 things specifically that make the 2800 so different. The first thing is going to be this machine offers a knee lifting function. So that little kind of L-shaped hook that goes into the machine, if that is a function that you are used to, this machine allows you to use a knee lifting feature to lift up the presser foot without having to use your hands. You just use the knee lifting function, which is pretty cool. This machine has a faster, expedited setup for rolled hems, all right? So on previous models, you'd have to make the changeover and then change your settings. On the 2800, it's the flip of a switch and you're ready to rock and roll. And lastly, the most important difference between this compared to the MO1000 and the 2000 and all of the other Sergers is going to be the distance from the needle to the blade. It's less than 10 millimeters. So why does that matter? This is an ideal feature for people who are making clothes, working with curves, really tight hems, sleeves especially. It allows you to get into those curved, tighter to reach areas and get more accurate seam allowances. So you also do get a clear foot to allow you to see a little bit better when you're working in those areas, which is a really great bonus. It's a great machine for somebody who wants to make clothes and get into those little nooks and crannies. This is my #1 recommended machine that I like to recommend for people who want to splurge on a great serger and make apparel. This machine has something called a stitch finger adjustment. This allows you to control the formation and width of the stitch by adjusting the small metal finger that's right under the needle plate that supports the thread loops. This is crucial for creating strong and even stitches and preventing fabric from tunneling and stretching. And how and when is this helpful? It's great for adjusting to fabric type, so it helps prevent stretching on knits or tunneling on light fabrics. Changing your stitch widths, it works alongside with the cutting width adjusted for precision. So it's two adjustments that you can make, and this is so nice, and it's exclusive to the 2800. You can't even do this on the top of the line MO3000. This is so vital for people who are working with knits and stretchy fabrics, because if you work with those fabrics, you know just how hard it can be, and having control to make your stitches look professional, that's what this machine is going to allow you to do. Air threading technology is something that's shared amongst all of the 4 machines in this group, right? They're all pretty versatile. They all share a very similar strength. The air threading sergers are a newer technology, so it comes with a better performing machine, and it can handle a little bit more than some of those, bottom of the line machines. Newer technology means a little bit stronger, a little bit more, capable, so to speak. But there is one serger that's a little bit stronger than the others. The MO3000 QVP. So this machine is very unique on its own, and there's a lot of things that make this machine really cool. David's done a video on this machine, so I highly recommend you go watch that too. He kind of shows you some of the features, and there is so much cool stuff on that machine, so definitely take your time to watch that if you're interested in the Lamborghini of sergers, so to speak. So this compared to everything else, this is a 2, 3, and 4 thread machine. Doesn't do any 5 thread, remember. And there's a lot of things that this machine does that all the others do too. But the 3000 starts to be a little bit more specialized of a machine, all right? So this machine would be most similar to the MO2800. It also has a knee lifting function. It has that expedited, faster rolled hem setup. And it still has that really narrow distance, that under 10 millimeter distance from the blade to the needle, all right? But there's even more. Things that are exclusive to the MO3000 are the micro lifting function, the thread cutter, the chain off cutter, speed control, and a temperature adjusting light. You can feel free to pause here and look at the screen as I kind of talk about these features, but remember to check out David's video if you want to, dive into this machine a little bit more. That machine deserves its own video because it's so cool and so in-depth, so definitely take some time to read the information above. Another really cool thing on the 2800 and the 3000 is that they both have like a little magnet on the top of the machine. So if you're switching over from 2 needles to 1 needle, you can put your extra one on the top so you don't lose it. I just love little convenience things like that. And the machines do have needle threaders that thread the left and the right needle. That is something that's shared on all of the air threading sergers. So the 1000, 2000, 2800, and the 3000 all have needle threaders, which is really, really convenient, because if you guys thought threading 1 needle was hard, imagine doing 2. So comparing the 2800 to the 3000, you'll notice that the MO3000 gains that LCD screen, kind of like how we saw on the MO2000. This makes life so much easier when you're changing through stitches, trying to do a specific type of stitch. The screen will display everything you need to do, everything you need to know to be successful to do that, whereas on the 2800, you have to, get to that point on your own. Very different from the rest, the MO3000 has a very unique tension system, and this is ridiculously cool. The MO3000 is, like I mentioned, much more specialized. This machine uses a tensionless air threading technology. So you'll notice at the top of the machine, there's no tension discs like there are on the other machines, right? There's no dials that you see there. This is a whole new way of serging. What does that mean and what does it change? The MO3000 QVP uses automatic thread supply system, the ATS system, if you will. This automatically adjusts thread delivery to ensure balanced stitches across different types of fabrics and thicknesses. So what's happening here is it's using almost like the power of air to feed off the thread from the spool and pull it through the machine, creating its own tension. So there's no tension dials, there's no manual adjusting to this machine, all right? It provides much more consistency that way. Whether you're sewing lightweight chiffon or more heavier denim, this machine fine-tunes the thread supply, kind of goes off of that. But it's also a much more user-friendly operation because there's no tension. You don't have to worry about it, right? It's like a whole thing that you can just toss out of your brain. You don't have to stress about adjusting tension. So for a beginner and for professionals, you don't have to tweak tension at all on this machine, which is pretty interesting. I like to make pros and cons for this type of system just because since this is a more specialized technology and type of machine, it's not ideal for everybody, right? So the MO3000's QVP way of feeding the thread through the machine is really incredible, but it's not for everyone, all right? So sometimes we think, oh, the MO3000 is the best of the best, so it must be the best serger out there. Not necessarily true. There's somebody who I would recommend the 2800 to versus the 3000 based off of this pros and cons list. So some pros are going to be less to worry about. It makes life much faster. You're getting things done for the right person. This is an amazing feature for people who want to sew wovens, wool, denim, and fabrics that have less play and more stability. This is key here. Really take that in, okay? More stability. So nothing super stretchy, four-way stretches, very giving types of fabrics, and the cons will explain that. Newer technology means better power. With the feature of the micro lifter on this machine, it allows you to raise up the height of the presser foot to get through those more heavy duty types of sewing, and that's exclusive to this machine. So these are some of the pros. Now, some of the cons to understanding if you want this machine or not. There's no fine tuning here, all right? So not being able to make manual adjustments to the tension, the machine doesn't know what type of material you're using. So this can become a challenge for somebody who's doing complex fabrics that are stretchy, very light and delicate, right? Because since the machine doesn't have a sensor, so to speak, you can't make those fine-tune adjustments like you could on the 2800. Newer technology costs money. So this will drive the cost of the machine and be much higher than others. So that could be a con, of course, depending on your budget. And it's not ideal for somebody who's doing a lot of different types of fabrics in garment sewing. It's better for more stable fabrics, home decor, and bags and quilts and things like that. So if you find yourself working with those type of materials, this would be a great machine. And if not, the 2800 is probably going to be a better fit for you. And again, if you have questions, feel free to give me a call and I'd love to help you out. And notice here, it says not to say that it can't do garments, it's just not going to do it as well as the MO2800 because of those adjusting and fine-tuning that you lose on this machine. So that's the air threading series. This is the top of the line series, and within this group you will find the most spoiling bells and whistles and by far the easiest learning curve, right? But with that comes a higher price tag, and that gets you those more luxe models, okay? So a lot to take in there, and it just depends on who you are and what you're looking for, but hopefully you kind of absorb that all in and watch those individual comparison videos, so now you kind of know where to guide yourself. So now that you've taken all that in, let's find your perfect match. Remember those 3 things I talked about in the beginning of the video? Here we are. Those 3 things that are really important when you're deciding your machine. What are you sewing? Features you want to have, and the budget that you're looking to stay under. What are you sewing is going to be definitely the first thing I ask you when you're looking for a serger. Understanding the use of the new machine. So understand, I'm talking about this as like I'm teaching people, but our staff here, but understanding what the customer is wanting to create with this machine. This is the most important information to gather. Are you a beginner? Do you have any experience? Are you making clothes? You're probably making clothes. Ask specifically what kind, what type of materials are you working with? Stretch, knits, jersey. Are you wanting it for quilts? Are you wanting it for bags? These are all really important things to ask yourself and really set your goal for what you want out of this machine. And how often are you going to be using this machine? Are you going to be using it as a hobby or as a business? This is very important information for you to write down and also for me when I'm interviewing you to get you to your perfect match. Next, you want to figure out what features you want to have, right? So learning these comparisons helps you understand what features you need and what you don't need, right? Being educated on what's out there. So if you are a beginner, chances are you're not going to really know how to answer this question. So it's my job to educate you on how to make your learning curve as simple as possible, right? Within your budget. That's number 3. So if you are experienced, you will have a better idea of how to answer this question, things that you're wanting, either from a serger that you have or stuff that you've seen and stuff that you don't want. And some people care about the top of the line, most spoiling features, and others just really don't. They just want something super reliable. So it's important, I wrote for myself, it's important to read the room. Also asking yourself, are you tech savvy or not, is really important too, because if you find yourself struggling with like technology on a daily basis, it might not be the best fit to get this super automated computerized type of sewing machine, right? So keep that in mind. And the last really big important one is budget. And budget means a lot because you're trying to be respectful of what you want to spend, and I want to be respectful of what you're looking for. So budget is super important, all right? And it's for 2 reasons. I'll be able to make suggestions for you, and you can make suggestions for yourself that's respectful to your budget. And I wrote this for myself, but no one likes a pushy salesperson, right? And if you've ever bought a sewing machine from us, you know that my goal is not to push the most expensive sewing machine on you. My goal is to give you an honest opinion, and being an honest type of salesperson is the most underrated type of salesperson. So while it's the most admired, because if I put myself in your shoes, I want someone to be honest to me. So I can always make you a suggestion right at your budget and then give you an option that would give you maybe a little more, that's maybe just a little more. So listen to what you want to spend and stay in on that. And when you're buying a machine, that's something that you really want to be disciplined on, and make sure that whoever you're buying the machine from really understands that. As far as budget goes and understanding, I didn't go over any prices here today, but if you want to have an idea of what machines look like, always head over to jukijunkies.com to see those prices. I have kind of a chart here of what prices typically look like around this range. The MO600 series is usually around like $300 to $700. The MO100 series is between like $500 and $600. And then the air threading series is usually around $1,300 to around $2,300. And remember, prices change over time, so always head over to jukijunkies.com to get the accurate pricing on these models. I hope you guys learned a ton in this presentation. I know there was a lot of information, so definitely feel free to go back, watch the video, pause, take some notes, and just really absorb everything that we went over today. But I hope that this really helps you understand the difference between all the Juki Sergers, what even is a serger, and gives you a little bit of insight of which one would make most sense for you at home. If you have any questions about which serger is right for you, always pick up the phone and give us a call at 813-661-9000, and me and David or anybody here will be happy to help you. You can also send us an email. We'll put it down in the description below. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, as we're always posting new content for you guys every Sunday, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.